This is the DJI OM6 and this is the Zhiyun Smooth 5S. This video is due to popular demand. So many of you guys have requested this video. So let's find out which one is the best gimbal and why. Now I have very strong opinions about each one of these two gimbals, but sometimes it's good to have the perspective of having them both side by side. There are plenty of reviews out there in YouTube where they go through the technical similarities of each one of these two gimbals, but I'm gonna focus more on the practical side of things. This is what I think matters most. So let's just get right into it. Every time I get a new gimbal, I always do the most basic gimbal shot that you could possibly expect a gimbal to do, which is an up and down shot or down and up, okay? And this gimbal has a very limited tilting range, okay? So you just can't do it. In order to do it, you need to do it in a bit of an awkward position. You need to angle the arm and the wrist and then go down and then go up. And this is not the right way to do this. And you need to understand one thing. This is a very personal opinion, okay? I come from a background of commercials, music videos, and corporate work where, you know, everything is done with common sense. And this, it's not. You can clearly see how limited the tilting range is. I mean, man, I can't believe they call this a gimbal. Now, compared to the OM6, the Smooth 5S has no restrictions of movement whatsoever. You can go up and down, no problem whatsoever. And that's how I expect a gimbal to operate. I expect the gimbal, when I lower the gimbal down and I bring it back up, that the phone keeps the horizon and I don't have to worry about things going out of whack or me having to do any adjustments. Let's try and do this. We're gonna go from the low up and nearly we got it. We got a little bit of movement at the top end and just about see, this is what I find annoying about this gimbal. You always get a little bit of a movement at the top end because this is such a weird motion. I just can never really get used to it. I find it so strange. What do you guys think? You know, leave me any comments below. Let me know whether you can relate to this, whether this is something that you don't care, or whether this is something that you find as annoying as I do. Compare this to the Smooth 5S. Look how much simple and easier it is, okay? Just press record. That's where we want it to end. We just go down, and we just go like this. And that's it, done. I mean, why is it so difficult to create a gimbal that operates like this? I mean, what is so difficult about it? I don't understand. In terms of setup and balancing, the OM6, because it's such a smaller gimbal, in my opinion, has the advantage. It makes balancing a breeze really straightforward, very quick. Now, the downside of it is that because it's such a quick and easy way to do it, you cannot refine the balancing. So if you have a little bit of a heavy payload, the gimbal just can't take it. And that's the strength of the Smooth 5S, that even though it's bigger and a bit slower to do the balancing, you can add more payload than the OM6 can take by a long stretch. The OM6 doesn't have it by default. You need to buy an extra adapter or mounting bracket with the LED lights, which is gonna set you back another $40, $50 or $60. Whereas the Smooth 5S has it built in. And this is really helpful if you do any type of vlogging or filming when it's low light or at nighttime, because that little LED light, believe me, it makes a big difference when it comes to lighting your face. There is one area where the OM6 is a much better proposition than the Smooth 5S, and that is in terms of transportation and mobility. Because this is such a tiny gimbal, you can literally pack it in your camera bag and it's gonna take up no space at all. Whereas the Smooth 5S, you have to allocate the space in your camera bag because it's such a bigger gimbal. This is probably the only area where I think this gimbal is a much better proposition than the Smooth 5S, no matter how you look at it. One of the coolest things that you can do with a gimbal is to mimic crane shots. And this is a very easy and simple to do shot that adds a lot of production value to any video. And it's just a very cool way to use a gimbal. With the OM6, this is pretty much impossible because you need to attach it and then have the gimbal sideways and then raise up as you go up. And you know, you might have a pole that is 2, 3 or even 4 feet or even longer in distance. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna be blocking an entire 5-foot section of the road or whatever it is that you have, and you might not even have that much space anyway where you wanna film. With the Smooth 5S, no problem. You attach a monopod to the base, and because you don't have any restrictions of movement whatsoever, you can just literally go down and up. Job done. Whether it's vertical or horizontal, no problem whatsoever. With the OM6, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's just an absolute pain. So in my opinion, this is another area where the Smooth 5S is a much better option than the OM6. In terms of time-lapse, both these gimbals have very similar integration and functionality with their own apps, and I don't think there is one gimbal that is far superior or any superior than the other one. Both give you very similar, if not the same, settings and functionality. Either one of these gimbals is what I would consider lightweight, okay? Even though the Zhiyun is a bit bigger and bulky and heavier than the OM6, it's still on the lightweight end of the spectrum. So you need to be very careful if you want to do your time lapses in an area or in a place or in a day that is very windy. It's gonna rock, and you will have to either stabilize in post or do it in a different day where there is no wind. That's something that you need to be aware of, and it's the same for both of them. And if you're liking the video so far, feel free to give me a thumbs up. It helps with the YouTube algorithm so that it can be shown to more people and it can help them make the right decision. Or even better, subscribe to the channel. It's really nice to see the numbers going up. And back to the video. You can film on both gimbals, both horizontal and vertical, but in my opinion, the Smooth 5S gives you a much better filming experience. For the simple fact that you don't have to worry about restrictions of movement compared to the OM6 with such a limited tilting range. Now, the plus side of the OM6 is that the switching between horizontal and vertical is much quicker and better. But in my opinion, once you set up the gimbal, whether it's horizontal and vertical, you want a gimbal that doesn't have restrictions of movement and operates as a gimbal is supposed to operate. So the Smooth 5S, in my opinion, is a much better proposition. But if you value the convenience of the OM6, maybe that's better for you. In terms of low mode or low angle, these two gimbals do it in a very different way. The OM6, for instance, you need to have this gimbal upside down, and then at some point it spins around, and that's how you do your low mode. Okay, now the advantage of that is that you can then use the selfie stick to go even further down, and that way you don't need to bend as much. With the Smooth 5S, on the other hand, you don't have restrictions of movement, so you just literally lower the gimbal down and the phone will go as low as you want it to go. It's a longer gimbal, and on top of that you could use long tripod feet. So yes, you don't have the selfie stick, but you're not going to be too far off from what the OM6 selfie stick gives you. You could attach a mini tripod or gorilla pod at the bottom of the gimbal and go even further down, because if you want to go from lower down up to normal height, with the OM6, the whole thing spins around as you go up, or you need to raise the gimbal upside down, which is not a natural way to do this, and you're never gonna get as smooth a shot as you're gonna get with the Smooth 5S, for the simple fact that you don't have to do any weird motion, and you can go as high as a crane shot if you have a monopod attached to it. So in my opinion, the Smooth 5S is a much better proposition than the OM6, once again. You could argue that you could compensate the limited tilting range by angling this so that you can have your phone looking a bit more straight to you, okay? Now, the problem with that argument is that yes, you could be in a much more standard way of operating a gimbal because you got this hinge that you angle. Now, the problem is that if you try to then go from lower up, this is a fixed hinge. It doesn't move with your arm going up or down, so your entire shot goes out of whack. It's only relevant if you are going to be static like this. Now, this is a nice feature, I give you that. You know, it's nice to have a selfie stick if you do any type of vlogging. In terms of operating the gimbal, I don't think it's a feature that really is going to set the world on fire. Now, saying that, this is just my way of looking at things. You may think differently, you might find a use for this, and obviously this is something that maybe you want to consider for your new gimbal or to buy the OM6. The Smooth 5S don't do it. This is a smaller gimbal, and obviously it's much lighter and you can maneuver quite easily, okay? Now the problem with this gimbal is that you cannot spin the gimbal around, so it's designed for you to be filming with the selfie lens, okay? Now The selfie lens, it's okay, but it's nowhere near as good as the main rear lens. Now, this gimbal, if you tap 3 times at the back, spins around, and you can then film with the rear lens and do your vlogging and be talking to camera and using the main lens, which is the best lens. So this is something that you then need to decide, whether you prefer the lightness and convenience of the OM6 or the slightly bulkier but better camera integration than the Smooth 5S. And yes, you could argue that you can set up the phone with a clamp the wrong way around, but if you do that, you don't get access to the actual screen of the phone. So pressing record or doing any additional setups is really, really difficult. Whereas with this phone, you can literally just do whatever you need to do, set up, and then 3 taps, spin around, do your vlogging, you finish, and then that's it, done. You don't have to do any workarounds to achieve the same result or something that looks similar. So in my opinion, even though this is a heavier and bigger gimbal, I think this is a better vlogging setup, and we're not talking kilos here, we're talking grams. So really and truly it's heavier, but it's not something that is gonna break your arm. So who are these gimbals for? Well, I think the OM6 is a gimbal for anyone that wants to shoot vertical. TikToks, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, that kind of work, this gimbal is okay. If you don't care about doing up-down shots or down-up shots, if you have no issue whatsoever on the amount of restriction of movement that you get with this gimbal, then this gimbal is okay. But for anybody else that wants a gimbal that behaves as a gimbal is supposed to behave, the Smooth 5S is the way to go. This is such a far superior gimbal, and yes, it's a bit bigger than the OM6, but you trade in size for quality, and in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. You can do so much more. I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but I think if you're planning to buy a gimbal and you don't worry about having something that is slightly bulkier, this is your option, this is the one to go. But you know, a gimbal is just one aspect in order to get really nice and cinematic footage. You need more accessories like filters, lenses, and in that regard, I've got this video here where I go through all of them in detail, and I'm sure you'll find something really helpful and useful for you. So click on it and I'll see you there.